My friend Joe Doyle knows a lot about this. He also knows a lot about the Republican National Committee, the platform, why it matters, and now how, after all of this, prior to this happening, to attempt on President Trump's life, the RNC decided to jettison its pro-life positions. Joe Doyle is the president and founder of the Catholic Action League of Massachusetts. He is on our Dude Maker hotline with us here. Joe, I would imagine you being the erudite scholar of American politics that you are, that you're going to want to talk a little bit about the attempt on President Trump's life as well. Good to have you with us. Thank you as always. How are you?
I'm very well, Mike. I'm always delighted to be with you and with your listeners.
So the assassination attempt on President Trump, you were a very young, active member of the Democrat Party when they took President Kennedy out. 1 inch difference here, and Trump is dead. Anything you'd like to reflect upon on that?
Well, first of all, they talk about threats to democracy, attacks on democracy. That's the ultimate attack on democracy. This is, I think, really, really very, very disturbing. The fact that this guy was able to get within 130 yards of a clear shot to line of sight to President Trump, and nobody spotted him, nobody saw anything. So, what's going on here with the Secret Service? This is just appalling. This is a completely in our modern era of drones and helicopters and aerial surveillance and thermal imaging and all the technology that we have. How is it that this guy was able to get it on an unsecured, unsterilized rooftop? So I think there's really a lot of unanswered questions here. As for President Trump himself, obviously this was an Andrew Jackson, Theodore Roosevelt moment, wasn't it? They shoot him, they graze him with a bullet, and he gets up and he shows defiance. So this is if you remember Life magazine. If Life magazine was still around, we know what the photo would be, wouldn't we?
Yes.
Of him with his fist in the air, underneath the American flag, surrounded by the Secret Service. It would have been the most famous photograph in American history. So we'll see. Thank God, first of all, that he's all right. Thank God that an assassination attempt was prevented. It looks like by the hand of God, he moved at the last moment, and thank God this monster did not succeed. But we need to know what happened here. This should never have happened. This fellow should never have gotten within shooting distance of the president. So we don't want to make any reckless charges, but it seems that there was some gross negligence here on the part of the United States Secret Service.
Okay, Joe, I agree on all fronts, and we are investigating this, and I have a couple of guys that are Kennedy historians that are going to come on the show next hour. For all of you, just note, George Webb has written several books about the Kennedy assassination, and there are obvious similarities here, but I wanted to talk to you today about the pro-life Waterloo.
Yeah.
This is okay. You drew me or inspired me to go read the party platform. Now, I want to disclaim before you say anything untoward about the party. So I want to give you a disclaimer and the audience a disclaimer first. I encourage all of you, go to get Joe's email. Joe will tell you how to subscribe. Go get Joe's email. I encourage all of you to actually download as a PDF file, print out and read the RNC party platform. You're going to be probably 90 to 95% in agreement. Some of it you may even stand. If you're reading it sitting down, you might stand up and fist bump in the air and be very excited about it. So this, to me, Joe, makes it that much more disastrous. Because they didn't have to put this paragraph in about IVF and we're only going to oppose late-term abortions and about contraception. It defies logic reasoning here of why they did this. But you're the one that rang the alarm bell, so I'm going to let you take over.
Well, I used to work for the chairman of the Democratic Party in Boston, the late State Representative Jim Craven, and he used to say, always play to your own strengths and never play to your enemy's positions. So this seems to be a kind of a classic textbook error of weakness on the part of the Republicans. This is far more than just an expedient downplaying of the pro-life issue for electoral purposes. This is a wholesale abandonment of longstanding pro-life positions and the embrace of positive moral evils like abortifacient contraception and, of course, embryo-destructive in vitro fertilization. And in addition to what's in the platform about contraception and IVF, now apparently President Trump has endorsed, mifepristone abortions, which now constitute about 63% of all American abortions, have caused about the deaths of about 642,000 innocent children every year. And he's dragging other Republicans with him. J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio, both Catholic senators. Vance is a recent convert. Rubio is a revert. They've now come out in favor of mifepristone abortions. So this is really very, no politician survives by dynamiting his own base. And if the President Trump continues doing, the Trump campaign continues doing this, you're going to look at a situation where you're alienating the base, you're dividing the party, you're going to depress turnout, you're going to diminish enthusiasm, you're going to reduce the number and the commitment of grassroots ward and precinct level campaign workers, and this really could have very tragic consequences in November. Obviously President Trump now believes that given the depravity of Biden and the Democrats, pro-lifers have nowhere to go. This means that they're kind of a disenfranchised, powerless interest group devoid of leverage or influence that can be ignored with impunity. And we really have to disabuse him of this notion. Countervailing pressure is the order of the day. Pro-lifers should complain long and loudly about this pro-abortion coup on the Republican Platform Committee. There should be a revolt tonight at the Republican convention, a revolt from the floor about this new platform. They should warn the Trump campaign that this could be a deal breaker for many of their activists. Instead of making excuses, it's time for pro-life leaders to speak to the Trump campaign in what the Soviets used to describe as a frank and comradely manner. President Trump, of all people, should certainly understand direct language. I can't emphasize or overemphasize how destructive this is. What generations of big tent Rockefeller Republicans like Massachusetts Governor Bill Weld have failed to do, which is eviscerate the party's pro-life platform, the Trump campaign accomplished overnight with hardly with barely a murmur of opposition from establishment, pro-life groups. And this is really the astounding part of it, that so many establishment pro-life groups are actually endorsing this new platform. So what's going on here? Are they worried about Joe Biden being reelected, or are they worried about losing a seat at the table or potentially a place on the payroll in a future in a future Republican administration? There has to be some pushback here. President Trump is making a mistake, and we need to let him know how grave a mistake this is, because many people could in the pro-life movement could end up essentially walking away from him. By the way, I sent out, in addition to the news release we sent on Friday, we sent out another one early this morning where we actually listed the 27 pro-life and pro-family positions that have been discarded now from the Republican platform. This was a long-standing and carefully considered and internally consistent and exactingly thorough list of 27 morally principled, politically defensible, and practically attainable pro-life legislative and public policy goals. Some of which were, really popular in polling, and most of which were politically serviceable one way or the other. And now they're just gone, all gone from the platform. And the fact that even politically popular pro-life positions have been abandoned suggests that, for the Trump campaign, any reference to the right to life is now a political no-go area. And of course, this has been replaced by a generic statement saying we stand for families and life, and an ambiguous reference to the 14th Amendment, which under current jurisprudence does not recognize the legal personhood of the unborn. This abandonment, arguably, I think, is the worst defeat in the modern history of the pro-life movement. I just give one little historical example. Despite British Prime Minister William Gladstone being their ally, Irish Home Rulers, who in the 1890s controlled more than 80 seats in the Westminster House of Commons, refused to permanently align themselves with any other single party, single candidate or single coalition partner. That way, they reasoned, their support would never be taken for granted. It seems that that's a lesson which American pro-lifers have never learned.
Well, let me add something here to Joe Doyle, president of the Catholic Action League of Massachusetts. You run the risk here, Joe, of kind of splitting the party here, and folks don't discount that. In the recent French elections here, okay, I have been following what's been happening in France very closely. I don't quite understand it because I don't understand EU politics, but I watched a video on Saturday. They gave me about a 30-minute long video. They gave me a lot of insight on this. Louis Vincent Gave is basically who is the guy who's being interviewed, and he's asked by the English interviewer, well, how is it possible that Marine Le Pen could take the prime ministership away from Macron so decidedly, but her party did not win enough seats to be a majority in the parliament. And his explanation, folks, this is what the Trump campaign and what the Republicans and what Joe is talking about should be very aware of and be very cautious over, and might do an about face over this. He said because there are deep-seated political disagreements amongst Marine Le Pen's against the right there, that they have basically balkanized or fractionalized themselves, and they're not a unified party. Instead, they have people going off in this direction saying that I won't vote with these people here because I so fundamentally disagree with them on this. So, Joe, it used to be the Big Tent party. It seems to me that this new RNC platform, not only is it throwing the pro-lifers out there to the dogs, but it's also jettisoned Ronald Reagan's idea of the big, wasn't it Reagan that came up with the Big Tent party?
It was Reagan who came up with the idea, the 11th commandment, never speak ill of another Republican.
Right.
But it was the so-called three stools approach, which was, conservatism on national security, conservatism on free enterprise, and conservatism on social issues. And certainly, I mean, the danger here, this is heartbreaking, by the way, Mike, given, President Trump's legacy from his first term. I mean, he was even more pro-life than Ronald Reagan.
Right.
But if he reduces the pro-life position of the Republican Party to states' rights in opposition to late-term abortion, which is you and I have discussed before, is only about 1% of all abortions, then we've not just lost a battle, we've lost the war for the next 50 years. Effectively, both political parties will be pro-abortion political parties, and pro-lifers will be marginalized. So there really has to be pushback here, and there has to, pro-lifers have to make it clear to President Trump and to the Trump campaign that this is a grave error that he's making, and that he's imperiling his prospects, and that he's alienating his own base. By the way, just to mention about what happened in France, Le Pen got, I think, 33% of the vote, so she got a plurality of the vote.
Yes.
But she didn't get a majority, and she didn't get a majority of the seats. And what happened is, France has a hybrid system where you have both a president, elected directly, and a prime minister who depends upon a majority in the Chamber of Deputies. And Macron arranged a coalition between his kind of center-left, liberals and the hardcore communist socialist left. And between the two of them, they have now a clear majority in the French Chamber of Deputies. So you're going to see, Le Pen's success actually is going to result in a hardcore left-wing government controlling France under Macron.
Yeah, and Gave, the video that I mentioned, he says that. He says that what they're going to do in August is they're going to have their little their Congress or their convention or whatever it is as it's called, and they're going to propose more socialist spending. He said though that the EU has to approve it. And he goes, the EU probably won't approve it, which would mean then that Macron's majority in the House in France will probably lose power in the next election, but that'll take 2 years. I'm speaking with Joe Doyle here, the president of the Catholic Action League here, about the changes to the Republican Party platform here. Let me go down a couple of these that are not in the platform any longer. Support for the Human Life Amendment. So I looked this up, followed your link, looked this up. This was basically an amendment that was to the Constitution that was proposed in 1975. So that would have been when Gerald Ford was president. And Republicans did not have a majority in the House. The Democrats had been running the House for 20-some odd years at that point. So it never went anywhere. Has the HLA ever come to a vote on the House, on the floor of the House of Representatives? Because maybe that's the stopgap here. Maybe Speaker Johnson, whoever the hell is the speaker in 2025, does an end around Trump and puts the HLA to a vote and gets it into the Senate. If it comes out of the Senate, then it goes to the states to be ratified.
Right. Well, what happened to the HLA was Orrin Hatch. There was actual momentum in the 1970s to pass the Human Life Amendment, and then Orrin Hatch came up with his sabotage, poison pill division amendment of returning Roe versus Wade to the states, and that then split the pro-life movement and prevented the Human Life Amendment from being passed. So if you want to know why the Human Life Amendment wasn't passed, it wasn't because of Ted Kennedy. It was because of a conservative Republican U.S. Senator from Utah, a Mormon, Orrin Hatch.
I know him well.
What they've done is they've support for the Human Life Amendment has been removed. Opposition to public funding of abortion has been removed. Opposition to the public funding of Planned Parenthood has been removed. Opposition to the sale of fetal tissue and fetal body parts is gone. Opposition to federal subsidies for health care, which includes abortion coverage, is gone. The old platform, specifically supported the appointment of judges who would respect the sanctity of innocent human life. That's gone. They've removed the plank opposing euthanasia and assisted suicide. The old platform had legislation that would require fathers to support children from conception to adulthood, so that a woman wouldn't be abandoned if she became pregnant. That's gone. The old platform supported funding for ultrasounds and adoption. That's gone. There was the previous platform supported state laws requiring parental consent and informed consent and waiting periods. That's gone. The support for federal born alive legislation. Now, that's something that's popular. That's something, who could oppose that?
That's right.
They've jettisoned that. Opposition to infanticide. They had support for, federal pain-capable unborn child protection. That's gone. They opposed, sex selection abortions and abortions based upon disability and dismemberment abortions. That's all been removed. There was opposition to embryonic stem cell research and to the federal funding of that. That's gone. Opposition to the harvesting of human embryos, opposition to human cloning. There was support for crisis pregnancy centers. That's been removed. There was support for the repeal of the Johnson Amendment, which restricts the free speech of churches. That's gone. There was opposition to Obergefell, the same-sex marriage decision, and U.S. versus Windsor, a similar one. That's gone. There was support for the right of religious charities and religious adoption agencies to act in accordance with their beliefs. They've removed that. There was support for the conscience rights of those who refuse to serve same-sex ceremonies. They've removed that. Support for the conscience rights of doctors, nurses, pharmacists. That's gone. And there was support for a federal ban prohibiting the transportation of a minor across state lines to procure an abortion. That's gone. So they've removed 27 pro-life and pro-family planks from the new Republican platform, and they've inserted support for abortifacient contraception and for embryo destructive in vitro fertilization.
Yes.
So this again, this is a pro-life Waterloo. This is the biggest disaster to strike the pro-life movement since its inception.
I want to read to you, Joe. We have 3 minutes left, so we're going to have to go fast. But I want to read to you. This is plank number 4 under family of the 10 planks. Republicans will protect and defend a vote of the people from within the states on the issues of life, which I think is a cop-out, by the way. We proudly stand for families and life. We believe that the 14th Amendment to the Constitution of the United States guarantees that no person can be denied life or liberty without due process, and that the states are therefore free to pass laws protecting those rights. After 51 years, because of us, that power has been given to the states and to a vote of the people. We will oppose late-term abortion while supporting mothers and policies that advance prenatal care, access to birth control, and IVF fertility treatments. Basically, that sounds like something Planned Parenthood would write. It is shocking. And by the way, Trump in his first term, Joe, you know this, signed an executive order and nuked the Johnson Amendment. He nuked it with an executive order.
Yeah.
And now that has been removed from the party platform. As you said, now I have not heard from the Susan B. Anthony list. Now they were the firmest supporters of Trump in 2016. I interviewed once on a Sirius XM Patriot channel and twice right here on the Crusade Radio Network. I interviewed Marjorie Dannenfelser, who is one of the loudest and most outspoken people on the issue of life, and 3 times, and she told me that she believed and supported Trump on this, and I'm just wondering what she has to say. Joe, our time is up, and I'm sorry to cut it short, but where can folks find this email that you sent out?
Go to www.catholicactionleague.org. That's www.catholicactionleague.org. And if you want to contact us, you can send us an email at catholicactionleague@gmail.com. That's catholicactionleague@gmail.com. It's just this is just very, very heartbreaking. President Trump had a magnificent pro-life record in his first term, and he seems to be galloping away from it.
He does.
It's very sad.
Joe, thank you very much for your time. God bless you, brother.
Thanks, Mike. Always glad to be here. Thank you.
Right.
Bye now.